Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship 2004 came out on February 5th, 2004 in Japan as Duel Monsters Expert 3, and a mere 5 days later on February 10th in the United States. This game would also continue the trend of being an actual companion product to the World Championships held for the paper game with its own tournament and prizing in kind. Although this game is technically the first to bear the World Championship name, it mostly serves as a successor to the previous year's Worldwide Edition. True duel simulators are now the norm for annual Yu-Gi-Oh! Game releases, and they would continue to try and innovate these games little by little as time goes on. We'll also get to continue our discussion of paper play meta, since this is a World Championship title, and that's always very exciting. However, like always, we begin our retrospective by taking a look at all the promo cards offered for the various releases of this game. Off we go! Duel Monsters Expert 3 came with a set of 3 promotional cards, which were Eames Infinity, DD Assailant, and Twin-Headed Beast. There was, as is written in the Book of Law, a game guide released in Japan that contained a promotional card, and that was Soul Rope. World Championship 2004 came with a set of promos as well, which were Fairy King Truesdale, Kinetic Soldier, that's the original name, it would be changed later to Cypher Soldier, and Slate Warrior. I feel like I'm getting some deja vu here. We've discussed before the relevance of Slate Warrior and Cypher Soldier, but suffice to say, or suffifer to say, they absolutely saw play in a number of strategies. DD Assailant would also see inclusion in some decks as a battle trick and a means of far more permanent monster removal, especially for that era in the game. This game was also included in a product called Duel Monsters Beginner Pack, along with a special promo set of your very own set of Exodia the Forbidden One. You could get 2 structure decks, Yugi and Kaiba Volume 2. These decks were never released anywhere outside of Japan, especially not in the way that they are presented here, but I'm sure they made a great gift for Yugi-enjoying youths all across that country. For our purposes, they just include another entry of promotional cards. I suppose I don't need to tell you that Exodia hasn't seen much competitive play in its time, but I'll say it here for the sake of completion and professionalism. Pretty cool, though. World Championship 2004 feels very similar to Worldwide Edition and consequently Duel Monsters Expert 2. They even brought back the feature where the game moves as glacially as possible unless you hold the L button. You can, like in other games, hold it while selecting the duelist so the effect is permanent for the duration of the duel, but geez, the pace the regular speed goes at, it feels like a cruel joke. This game features a whopping 1,136 cards, excluding 2 cards available in alternate artworks, which are Dark Magician and Polymerization. This card pool is meant to reflect the OCG card pool up to Pharaonic Guardian, but actually receiving any of those cards is going to require quite a bit of effort on your part as the player. Once again, eschewing the OCG artworks, which remains a boring decision, players are left to just remember which monster pack gives you real cards and which one just gives you a handful of ritual monsters that no one will literally ever summon. Why even bother? Just put these cards into other packs. I can't imagine that product did well in Japan either. Additionally, this game abides by the January 2003 OCG limited list, so those are also limitations to consider when building your deck. I'm no ban list analyzer, but I think I'm qualified to say that putting Guardian Sphinx to 2 was not changing meaningfully how that card entered into the format. That's just my opinion. Despite its sluggishness, the UI remains clean and simple to use. I know for some, the scrolling backgrounds is too much to handle, gives you a little bit of motion sickness, but I find it an answer to a problem many of the other games had, which is that the field is just too static. Fun fact, you can actually have multiple decks in this game, up to 3 to be exact. The deck edit menu is a little unwieldy to look at, but has a great feel to it once you get your mind around it and learn it. It tried to streamline the filter menus that were so clunky in Eternal Duelist Soul and Worldwide Edition, but it sort of just makes it a different kind of clunky, in my humble bundle opinion. The ability to have multiple decks is certainly encouraging deck building in a way these games have not ever done before, which is great to see. This game forgoes any kind of story to instead focus on you choosing a character portrait and dueling whatever deck they have assigned to that character, like Tristan, for instance, is High Attack, and Grandpa is Exodia. After defeating some of the duelists an amount of times that is equivalent to a multiple of 5, you unlock more duelists. After beating some duelists 10 times, you unlock more packs. If it ain't broke, why fix it, I suppose. There's a fairly comprehensive list of duelable duelists in this dueling simulator, which is definitely nice to see, but it doesn't really amount to anything since, they don't really have anything to offer in terms of stimulating conversation. Dang, it seems like some games with no story have better dueling, and the games with story are always fun to play. Wonder if they'll ever fix this. Guess we'll have to see. One thing to note here, there are no passwords in this game, so you can only unlock cards through the packs. Needless to say, this is not my favorite choice in the world. This game is supposed to represent the World Championship format. Let kids type in the passwords on the cards their parents bought them. That's what I say. Obviously, it turns off their intended path of progression in the game design, but if the intended path requires me to play a 1 Tribute 1700 attack monster with no effect, then I think I'd rather go play Magic the Gathering. The AI in this game also has some quirks to it. It seems to just respond to actions that it can, rather than making optimal plays based on the field. I only bring this up because other games have had more contextually analytical AI, even in the past. In this product, it mostly works, but it will also just use Change of Heart to take my monster, switch it to defense, and then end the turn? I won't presume knowledge here. Game development is difficult, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very complex game, but I just really think the computer should be smarter. This was also the origin of a very funny incident and a lesson in contextual find and replace features. You see, it is in this era that Yu-Gi-Oh! Had to make the great transition from calling the green cards magic cards to spell cards. As a result, lots of text in the effects and descriptions had to change, and one option they went with was to find and replace magic for spell, changing magicians to spellians. Hilariously, this would not be the last time this happens. If you're really deep in the game's discourse tank at large, you may remember discussions around playing until you're satisfied. This World Championship game definitely gives that same kind of vibe, but like a decade earlier. There isn't really an end state. Sure, you can unlock all the cards or unlock all the duelists, but to what end? Ultimately, it was all done in the goal of playing more Yu-Gi-Oh! And once you're done with that, isn't that the end state that matters most? Thanks, Sam Barlow. You really introduced a great concept for everyone. This game includes up to the OCG product, Pharaonic Guardian, which only encompasses about half of the Pharaonic Guardian that the rest of the world would get. If you're unfamiliar, TCG products would often adopt the naming conventions of an OCG product and amalgamate it with other things. There's more to this, so please hold your comments about missing important details, alright? Or don't, just go ahead and explain it all outright. I don't care. I just like that you comment.
Algorithms!
What that does mean, however, is that this game contained the entirety of the TCG product, Legacy of Darkness, which many players recognize as a huge power boost in strategies around this time. Cards like Exiled Force, Reinforcement of the Army, Air Knight Parshath, and of course one of the most potent floodgates of all time, Royal Oppression, were released in this set, and many of these cards would become popular includes immediately. Winning decks at the actual 2004 World Championships included, can you guess? If not, the answer's Chaos. Yes, the entire top 4 was Chaos. Ryan Pugh, however, played one of the funkiest Chaos lists of all time. This guy had an Archfiend Soldier in there for some reason, and a Reflect Bounder, while the other top 4 had almost literally the same list, featuring all the usual suspects for this strategy. Ryan also has an interview from IGN that I think is great, and they ask him some very funny questions. Now, at this time, basically any competitive strategy floating to the top of the scene was some carbon copy or slight derivation from Chaos. Shortly after this event in July, both the OCG and TCG would receive word that for the first time ever, some cards would be forbidden from competitive play, therefore changing the list from a limitations list to the forbidden and limited list. I would like to take this time to mention, however, that this event, which took place in sunny Anaheim, California, also home to the other children's franchise that a disproportionate amount of adults enjoy, Disneyland, has the funniest prizing of all time. On top of the standard fare of booster boxes and deck boxes, the winner also received a copy of Chef of Destruction, several exclusive packs, which were the 8-card complete set packs with the Sphinx cards, you know the ones, and most importantly, this event had 2 special prize cards, Ulevo and Medio the Matchless, awarded only to the top 4. The prize cards are great, but the winner of the World Championship gets a $30 Game Boy game? Now that's comedy. These prize cards were, I believe, the first match winner prize cards offered in a tournament that had that famous "this card cannot be used in a duel" text at the bottom left, after having to ban the first match winner ever printed, Victory Dragon, which was given as a prize card in the previous year's World Championship. These cards are exceedingly rare, so if you've ever found yourself with one, be sure to treasure it. They're a very cool piece of history, and only a handful of each one exist. World Championship 2004 is a fine addition to the franchise of video games, but I wouldn't necessarily put it in my top 5. Anecdotally, a lot of my friends at school had this game, so I would like to assume this game was very popular. But either way, Yu-Gi-Oh! Continued to print money for Konami as a game developer. Sure, the game is slow and the AI is a little stunted, but it was still a much greater card pool offered than ever before, allowing children to have access to cards that would otherwise, for a variety of factors, be inaccessible to play with. Also, this would be the final numbered expert title in the franchise. One more game will end up bearing the expert name, but not the numbering scheme. These games would briefly adopt the title International in Japan, but would eventually just settle on calling these games World Championships. World Championship 2004 was definitely the end of some things, and the beginning of a whole lot of others. As stated in the beginning, this game was the first to bear the international moniker as a World Championship game, and this series would continue into the far-flung future of 2011. How do things continue from here? And how much of their roots established here in 2004 remain true to the very end? We'll have to find out as we go along. But thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.